Many of the world's ancient civilizations didn't have a written language. Even those which did weren't in the habit of writing instruction manuals or technical manuscripts to go with their technology. Because of that, we are often at a loss to understand how ancient technology worked. In some cases, we don't even know how or why it was invented. All we can do is look upon it in wonder, which is precisely what we're going to do in this video. The village of Hampi in the Indian state of Karnataka stands today on the site of what was once Vijayanagar, the capital city of the once mighty Vijayanagar Empire. It's a place of myths and legends, the most bizarre of which is the idea that this was also once the home of the kingdom of the Vanaras. They're said to be a race of monkey-like humanoids and are mentioned in the Ramayana. We're not sure about monkey people, but we do know that whatever culture lived here in ancient times is responsible for some remarkable feats of structural engineering. Looking at this precision-engineered square stone structure, you could easily believe it was a sporting arena, but it's actually an aqueduct. This magnificent structure supplied water to a city of thousands of people. The function of the Hampi Aqueduct isn't mysterious, but the strangely shaped blocks used in its construction are. This is far from the easiest way to build an aqueduct. So why was this style chosen? How were the stones even cut with such precision? Sadly, these are questions to which we don't have answers, and it's possible that we never will. Sudan isn't a safe place to visit. Even after South Sudan separated away from the rest of the country and became an independent state, it remains a troubled, war-ravaged region. Because of that, the pyramids of Merio get very few visitors from the outside world, and that's a shame. The pyramids were built about 2,800 years ago, back when Sudan was part of the ancient state of Kush. You can tell from the design of the structures that they were heavily influenced by the Egyptian pyramids. The two pyramids, which are listed on the UNESCO World Heritage List, are even sometimes referred to as the tombs of the Black Pharaohs. They're part of a larger burial complex known as Bagravia. The power of the Kingdom of Kush once stretched from the coast of the Mediterranean Sea to the heart of Africa. But such has been the level of upheaval on the continent since then that there's very little physical evidence of the kingdom left. Until recently, archaeologists and historians weren't even sure where the former borders of Kush started and ended. That makes the pyramids a precious, lingering trace of a time long forgotten. Our ancient ancestors developed different skills at different times all over the world. Almost every region went through a Bronze Age, for example, but the Bronze Age happened at different times in different places. Also, some cultures were much better at working with bronze than others. 3,500 years ago, there was nobody in the world more adept at working with bronze than the ancient inhabitants of China. We can tell that from the countless examples of ancient Chinese bronze work that archaeologists have discovered over the years. Most of them are now kept in museums, but on the rare occasions they turn up for auction, they're often sold for millions of dollars. In many cases, we don't even know what the artifacts were used for. They're strangely shaped and elaborately decorated, but serve no clear purpose. Were they merely decorative items? Or has their purpose simply been forgotten over the passage of time? To compound the issue, there were so many different cultural groups around in the China of the time that we often don't know who to credit with the creation of the objects. Whoever they were clearly a very advanced civilization. The site of Sahasralinga in India is as popular with science fiction fans as it is with archaeologists. That's because the numerous carvings in the stunning rock formations at the site look so much like the famous dials from the Stargate series. You'll find the carvings in Karnataka if you ever want to go and take a look at them yourself. Not even the local residents know who made these carvings. The site was deliberately flooded to become a reservoir many years ago, and it seems that all knowledge of what happened before was lost at that time. When the reservoir was drained and Sahasralinga was revealed, archaeologists had no idea what to make of it. Some of the shapes and carvings come with inscriptions, but unfortunately, the inscriptions are too badly weathered for us to be able to make any sense of them. Curiously, there's no sign of any tool marks in or around any of the carvings. It's almost as if they were made using some kind of advanced stone-cutting technology, but that would be impossible. As far as we know, no such technology existed when the stones were cut. This is now a world-famous site, but we still know precious little about how it was created. We know more about the origins of the Cisterns of Carthage in Tunisia than we do about Sahasralinga, but that doesn't make them any less wonderful. The Romans were incredibly advanced architects and builders for their time, but the cisterns represent some of their finest work. Each of them is more than 300 feet long. In ancient times, they were connected to an even larger set of cisterns as part of the world's longest aqueduct. Even after the Roman era came to an end, countless people and cultures found alternative uses for them over the centuries that followed. The cisterns of Carthage have been used as barns, stables, storage facilities, and even as primitive housing during the medieval period. The site of the cisterns was damaged during the 19th century when stone was scavenged from here to be used elsewhere, but the Tunisian government stepped in to put a stop to that practice in the 20th century. They've since been reclassified as a national monument and are open to tourists on a limited basis. If you ever visit them, you'll find yourself wondering how people had such detailed knowledge of hydraulic engineering 2,000 years ago. Italy isn't exactly short on ancient wonders, but our next incredible site isn't one of the more famous ones. That might have a lot to do with the fact that it's underwater. This is Baya, which has developed a nickname among archaeologists as the Sunken Las Vegas. It's a whole ancient city beneath the waves not far from Pompeii and Naples. Back when it was on dry land, it was thought of as one of the most luxurious places to live in the whole country. Gaius Julius Caesar once had a large villa here, as did Emperor Hadrian. They were drawn here by the stunning views and the alleged healing properties of the water that came from its springs. Seneca, by contrast, warned people not to visit Baya. He thought of it as a haven of vice and depravity. It's that combination of luxury living and seedy culture that earned it the Las Vegas nickname. Whatever the people who lived here may have done in their spare time, they created some wonderful things from stone. Even their perfectly smooth, curved bathtubs were made from stone. It's thought that Baya sank because of volcanic activity, and the fact that it's underwater makes it hard for archaeologists to come here and examine its many mysteries. The name and location of Britain's tallest monolith are virtually unknown to all but those who live closest to it. If you're one of our British viewers and you have no idea what we're talking about, the answer is the Redstone monolith in East Riding of Yorkshire. It stands in the middle of a cemetery, but towers over both the cemetery and the church next to it. The monolith is 25 feet tall and has uncertain origins. Most historians believe it to have been erected during either the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age. The stone isn't particularly local. It was brought here from the Yorkshire moors, some 40 miles away. How the people of the time could have been capable of cutting the stone and then dragging it for 40 miles to erect it here is unknown. Most experts suspect that it was a focal point for pagan festivals and religious activities, although there's some evidence that there was once a cross affixed to the top. Christians might have attempted to claim the stone as their own once Christianity arrived in the country. That's unproven, but it's fairly typical of early Christian treatment of pagan sites. While great attention is paid to the largest Mayan monuments in South America, far less attention is paid to the ancient Mayan road network. The roads are known as Sakbas. They're exceptionally well preserved, but have attracted very little in the way of archaeological research. Each Sakba is a mound of crushed limestone and pebbles, so the roads are elevated above the rest of the ground. The widest of them are 70 feet across, and they can stand up to 12 feet tall. The roads stretch on for hundreds of miles between all the largest Mayan cities. They're so big that they can be seen from space. Satellite images of the Sakba show them to be perfectly straight. They're even straighter than Roman roads, and that's saying something. We call them roads because that's our best guess as to their function, but we can't be sure that's how they were used. We don't think the Mayans ever invented the wheel, so it's not like they'd have chariots or horse-drawn carriages to send up and down the roads. If they were designed to be walked on, what was the point of elevating them so far above the ground? The Citadel of Aleppo in Syria is both ancient and enormous. It's one of the oldest and largest castles in the entire world. It would be considered an impressive architectural accomplishment if anyone were to create a structure like this now. The fact that the work was completed 5,000 years ago is almost unthinkable. How much of the structure that exists today can be traced back 3,000 years ago is a matter of some debate, as there are signs that the citadel was extensively expanded, repaired, and otherwise altered until the early 12th century. Countless civilizations and cultures have either lived within or otherwise made use of the citadel over the centuries, including the Mamluks, the Ayyubids, the Greeks, and the Byzantines. Unfortunately, it was extensively damaged during the Battle of Aleppo between 2012 and 2016. A restoration project has been ongoing since 2017, but there's still a lot of work to do, and it isn't clear who's going to pay for that work to be done. Beneath the citadel is a series of tunnels that run beneath the moat and out into the city. They still haven't been fully explored to this day. Our next mysterious find goes by a few names. One is the Chandar Plate. It's also known as the Chandar Slab, or sometimes the Dashka Stone. Whatever name you call it by, it's thought by some to be an ancient map. The lines on the stone have been interpreted as streams, rivers, and dams around the Ural Mountains. It's even been said that the uneven surface of the stone is an accurate depiction of the gradients in the region. There are two huge problems with that. The first is that a map of such supposed accuracy could only be designed by someone who could see the region from above. The second is that samples taken from shell fossils inside the rock suggests that the Chandar Plate is about 50 million years old. Combine the two things together and you can see why so many scientists write this off as nothing more than a rock with some interesting cracks and fissures in it. However, it can't be written off so easily. There's a layer of silicone-enriched glass on top of the layers of dolomite that make up the bulk of the slab, and even a topping of calcium that makes the markings easier to see. The stone shows obvious signs of being of artificial origin. But how is that possible? Scientists are even less keen on talking about NonMadol than they are on talking about the Dashka Stone. It's such an impossible place that some archaeologists wonder whether it was created as an elaborate practical joke. NonMadol is an ancient city built on coral reefs on the island of Pohnpei in Micronesia. Estimates of its age range between 1,000 and 1,500 years. The stone used to create NonMadol doesn't come from the island, nor does it come from anywhere else in Micronesia. Even the smallest of the stones weigh 50 tons. That means someone took incredibly heavy stones from an unknown location and brought them to Pohnpei to create NonMadol at least 1,000 years ago. We don't know who those people were or what technology they could possibly have used. We don't even know what happened to them. NonMadol appears to have been abandoned not long after it was settled. What little archaeological evidence exists at the site suggests the abandonment was subtle. Is NonMadol the work of a lost civilization of whom we know literally nothing? It certainly seems that way. The discovery of an old canoe in Wisconsin, USA doesn't sound all that exciting until you hear more about it. We'll start with the fact that the canoe, which was discovered in November 2021, is 1,200 years old. It's a dugout canoe made from the hollowed-out trunk of a single tree. Wooden objects like this would have rotted away centuries ago under normal circumstances, but this canoe has survived because it was buried in clay and mud 30 feet below Lake Mendota. Little is known about the people who made it, but they were probably ancestors of the local First Nations Ho-Chunk people. According to archaeologists and historians, dugout canoes like this were the first watercraft our ancient ancestors ever created. Very few have survived to the present day, which makes this one all the more valuable. It's in such a delicate state that it must undergo a 3-year-long process of drying and stabilizing. But presuming it survives that process, it will eventually go on display within the Wisconsin Historical Society's new museum. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!